It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn. I'm excited to be with you today, as I always am, because this is a special episode. I thought about this before I actually sat down with these young ladies, and I'm thankful that they reached out to me. And it's something that I tell all of the listeners of the podcast. If you've got a great story to tell, if you're doing something unique here in Northwest Arkansas, if you've always wanted to be on a podcast and you want to sit down and chop it up with me, this is the way to do it. I want to just read this simple email that was sent to me a while back. This was probably April, I think, originally when we originally reached out. And I got an email from Sugar Apple Baking Company, and it says, "Hello, Randy. I attended Onward Ozarks, telling Northwest Arkansas's unique story, and heard you mention your podcast. And for those of you that don't know, I do host the Onward Ozarks program with the Northwest Arkansas Council. Encourage you to listen to it. We do 4 programs a year, and we talk about a lot of different things. This happened to be a program that I did on telling your story. And so this person goes on to write, I am reaching out to you to see if you would be willing to interview us. And then it says, we have launched a new boutique pop-up bakery that specializes in a unique blend of West Indian. And that's what caught my eye, West Indian, because for those of you that don't know, my wife is from Trinidad. So I said, man, you know what? I need to check these guys out. And traditional baked goods. Danielle Reynolds is the creative baker coming up with items that are unique and provide a memorable bite. And I am Blanca Maldonado, and I am part owner of the business. I manage pop-up locations and our social media accounts. And I look forward to hearing from you. Sincerely, Blanca. And so I get emails like this all the time. I got this email. I think I reached out to them the same day. And as a matter of fact, I said, sure, I'd be happy to chat. And the rest, as they say, is history. And now these 2 fine young ladies are right in front of me, front and center. And they came with baked goods, right? Yep. They didn't come empty handed, because I said, I hope they bring something for me to try. And they did. And I cannot wait to talk about these cookies. They brought a sampling of some of their delights, and we're going to jump into that in a second. But without further ado, I want to welcome Blanca Maldonado and Danielle Reynolds to the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. How are you guys doing?
We're good. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for responding.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Without a doubt. I always respond. And if I don't respond, I guarantee you it ended up in spam somewhere. That's the only way that I'm not responding to somebody.
And I'm always going to shoot my shot.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I love that.
Thank you. Love the Hamilton reference. There's nothing like that. So, well, listen, why don't we start off, because I always love to do this so that my audience knows who we're talking to. Would love for you guys just to give your Cliff Note version, since it's 2 of you. Give your Cliff Note version of your superhero origin story, who you are, how you got here to Northwest Arkansas. Because, I don't think any of the 3 of us are originally from Northwest Arkansas. But I am. Are you really?
Oh, it's a good story.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
So, well, you know what? On that case, Danielle, you started off.
So I'm Danielle Reynolds. I was born in Fayetteville, Washington Regional Hospital, the old hospital. 3 months, my parents moved us back to the Caribbean immediately.
Where?
St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Right. Okay.
Which is close to Trinidad.
Yep.
It's very close.
It is very close.
I stayed there until I was 16. We bounced around the U.S. a little bit. We spent probably about 6 months out of the year in America. I came back to Fayetteville a lot. 16, I was like, I'm going to college. I don't want to go to community college. I don't want to take A-levels, which is like our end of the year program if you're 16.
Sure.
I was like, no, I'm going to go to college at 16. So I got into U of A, and I've been here ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. You are truly an NWA baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something.
But in a roundabout way.
In a roundabout way,
yeah.
by way of the Caribbean.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Blanca?
I was born in LA. My parents were from El Salvador.
Okay.
And they immigrated in the 80s, moved to LA, realized it's dangerous, and we're headed to Canada. So they drove. Yeah, because it was going to be safer. They drove and stayed in New Jersey with an aunt, and then they ended up staying there. Grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Moved
That's
here.
right. We talked about that because I'm from Teaneck, and Teaneck and Elizabeth are just a couple of, not far away. I mean, like 20 minutes at the most. So, yeah.
So then when I was going to start college, I wanted to leave the house. So I came over here to Rogers, Arkansas in 2007. I had an uncle that was living out here.
Okay.
So I was like, why not? If I don't like it, I could always move back in with my parents. And I'm still here. I love it. It's easy like to raise a family and real chill. When I want some city energy, I go back home.
Yeah, that's how I kind of feel. I was up in New York and New Jersey. I was up in Teaneck just a couple of weeks ago, and I said, oh, it's nice to be here and get my fill and then come back. The one thing that I really, it just dawned on me, I really hate traffic.
Oh my gosh.
Like you would not believe.
Yeah, I have no tolerance for traffic anymore. And I realize like why people are so pissed all the time.
All the time.
Like as soon as we get off in Newark Airport, my mother-in-law is cussing everybody out. And I get it.
Forget about it. It's like, if you're not, I mean, a lot of you that are listening to this are from Northwest Arkansas. You get upset if College Avenue gets backed up. Let me tell you, you don't understand what traffic is until you are sitting on 93 in Boston coming out of the city, or you're sitting on 95 at a crawl just as you leave the
parking lot,
the toll plaza there at exit 14 by the Meadowlands, or you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, there's always something crazy. I mean, fill in the blank, any major city with traffic, Atlanta, Dallas, the Bay Area, LA. I mean, it's just insane. So
LA is dizzying with lanes.
So, and I can only imagine that as we continue to grow, we will have some traffic woes at some point in time. I just hope that the powers that be, those that are planning the growth, the inevitable growth that we're going to experience here in Northwest Arkansas, they really take that into consideration, that we build a couple of beltways and some other ways for things to feed in. Because right now, there's only a couple of roads that feed into everything. And so there's going to need to be more thought that goes into that. And I believe people at the Urban Land Institute and other places are doing that. But that's not what this podcast is about. So I want to get back to baked goods. So you guys, in the middle of everything else, so you guys are kind of roundabout got here. One person was born here. The other person ended up here. And now you've been here. That's 15 years since 2007. How did you guys become friends?
We were in the same sorority.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. So it turns out sorority life was not for either of us, you know?
Really?
But like out of that became like a really good friendship and like bond. So it's almost like we bonded on not being able to bond, you know?
Interesting.
Yes.
That's kind of meta.
Yes, very. It's like, oh, you don't enjoy this either? I don't either. Goodness. We should be people.
It was like, I don't like this group thinking. It's kind of...
No.
It was too much.
Yeah. I like doing my own thing.
I went through it.
Yeah.
I went through the experience and I was like,
you got the t-shirt to prove it.
Yeah. It's like, all right, it's not for me.
Yeah.
I met some cool people, but I'm not going to stay in it.
That's it. Well, you got each other out of the deal.
Yeah, we did.
So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah.
So at what point did the entrepreneurial bug bite you guys?
Oh, for me, it was like second grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, easily. I was selling candy out of my backpack, you know. I didn't like that my parents had the ability to control what I could buy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Because they were handling the money.
Yep.
So I was like, wait a minute, if I get my own money, I can buy whatever I want.
Sure.
So it was immediately like, okay, well, how do I make money in second grade? I'm like, everybody likes candy.
Yeah.
So I would buy like that multi-pack of candy and sell them individually.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's what the stores do.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what the stores do.
I was like, I could do that.
Yeah. My son was selling it. And it's unfortunate because like my son had a hardcore Jolly Rancher market going on in his bus.
Nice.
Up to the Arkansas Arts Academy. And then they shut it down. They were like, you can't sell candy. And it's like, because I don't think that schools think about the learning process of being an entrepreneur and trying to figure that out. And he was coming home making bank. I mean, he was like, he would come home at the end of every week like, Dad, you need to order some more.
Oh,
I need,
nice.
I mean, he's made quite a bit. I mean, I'm sorry to the parents if you've had to spend time with the dentist, but yes, my son was he was the Jolly Rancher man on the bus headed up to the Arkansas Arts Academy from Fayetteville for a while there until they shut it down. And I've seen that happen a lot of times where if the school doesn't organize it, then they don't want to be a part of it. And that's, it's just unfortunate. It's also one of the challenges that in schools, they don't teach financial fitness.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we don't get a lot of the things that you need to have in order to adult. It's like, how do I make some money? You buy this for $1 and then sell it for $2.
Right.
Well, see, I've gotten in trouble for things like that because I'm actually a public school teacher. I teach 9th grade physical science. And every school year, I pull up my check stub. Yep. And I put my check stub on the board and the kids are like, taxes. I'm like, yeah. Taxes, insurance, it's all gone. And they're like shocked. So we have this conversation about like, okay, if you have loans and you become a teacher, or you have loans and you become whatever you want to become.
Sure.
Like there's all these things that come out. So like be thoughtful about like your path of getting there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that traditional path that everybody expects.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is a challenge because I've been told I shouldn't do that. I'm like, why? Why?
Right. That was one of my favorite teachers. They made us write checks. Had a whole game. This was back in the day before the internet, I guess. Mm-hmm. We had the newspaper and like stocks and pick stocks, and he would track it for us. And I learned a bunch through that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's just real life.
One of the more memorable lessons I remember.
It is. It definitely is. So
I talk to the kids about the cookies too.
Yeah.
Because there's kids that bake. I mean, I see them. There's kids that have like, a lot of the Marshallese girls sell these like gummy bears that they've soaked in like Kool-Aid and like tahini in these little packs. And I'm like, so what's your profit margin? And they're like, what?
What?
I'm like, well, how much money do you make? Oh, I sell it for $1.50. I'm like, that's how much you're selling it for. How much money are you making?
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean? So I'm like, well, how much time did it take? How much are the ingredients? I do like I have a full spreadsheet that I use personally.
Sure.
But I do like a little breakdown for them where I'm like, well, how much money do you actually make? Like, how much do you have to have every week to like buy more? And so that's always an interesting conversation.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, there is so much room for entrepreneurial education in our school systems.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of times we don't give credit to these young people, how much of a sponge that they are, that they can take in a lot of information. And if you show them, you teach them how to fish early, they can
take in real world information.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like I think we're scared that like teenagers are not capable. So like we start babying kids really early,
Yeah.
So when we start talking about like anatomy, the heart is a heart shape.
Right.
I'm like, they could handle it being an actual heart. They could handle it. But we have these assumptions that kids are like so much less capable than they actually are.
Yeah.
And they are. Now, granted, teenagers, I'm like, you have no frontal lobe.
No.
You got nothing.
That is a whole, and that's what I tell my 17-year-old son. I'm like, dude, trust me, you're not there yet.
No.
And you're not going to be there till you're 25. I was 26, son, until, and that's hard for me to admit, but I tell my son all the time, I'm like, dude, I wasn't a man until I was 26.
It's just biology. It's nothing personal.
It's
nothing personal.
The way
it is what it is.
I functioned, but I wasn't a man until I was 26 years of age. And, being able to have a baby doesn't make you a man.
Right.
And you have to have those real world conversations. But we are digressing into some other areas of content, which are quite interesting to talk about though, right? Because it is the reality of where we are. But you guys, when you talk about entrepreneurship, you took the time and said, you know what? In spite of everything that's going on out in the world, the pandemic and all of that, you guys decided to start a baking company. How did that part of your relationship come about? Did you just one day just decide?
No. So Danny, for a couple of years, I bought a Leo's cake from her. And in my mind, I was like, I just want, for birthday cakes, I like to spend some money on birthday cakes and make sure that they taste good because we only buy it once a year. I don't want to go buy like some crappy cake.
Yeah.
I like baked goods. Another thing is I miss like all the bakeries in the East Coast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Danny was making stuff and I'm like, oh my God, this is like what I used to eat back home. I'm like, why aren't you making these? At the time, you were also making cinnamon buns.
Yeah.
And she was like, I would always find her and buy it from her. So
I was selling them on the trunk of my car.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah. Like I would put it out on Instagram and then I would say, hey, meet me at the Macadoodles parking lot in Springdale.
Oh.
Yep.
Right.
And I would like pop my trunk and people would drive by and I'd be like, oh, I'd check their name off a list if they Venmo'd me and be like, here's your cinnamon rolls.
Yeah. I've run across a few people that have done that. There's a young lady that does vegan donuts. And that's like her whole shtick, and that's what she does. And you just order them on Instagram, and then she'll meet you like she met me at the parking lot of Whole Foods. And you'd be surprised where people will pick up things nowadays.
Yeah,
so.
And then you get the bug, and the bug is, wait a minute, like people will buy my products, people like what I'm making, and then it's like, okay, what do I do next?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I would like hound her. I'm like, hey, you should sell this other stuff. Let's do this. And she's like, I just don't like dealing with people. I don't like talking to people. It kills my creativity. I'm like, you know what? I love people.
Yeah.
I love to people. I love social media. Like I was doing earlier. I like recording content.
Yeah.
I was like, you do that part. I'll worry about the rest.
Sure.
And finally she came around.
Yeah. And the nice thing about like the way that we work as like business partners is it's very much, we had a very open conversation in the beginning about like what I'm good at, what I thought Blanca was good at, you know? So very upfront, like I was like, listen, I don't really want to interact with people. Right. You know, if someone has a chocolate cake request, Blanca needs to like buffer that because I don't make basic cakes,
right,
you know?
Right.
That's like not what our branding is about. And we had like some really good conversations about like, okay, 10 years, what do you want Sugar Apple to be? You know? And I don't want to be known for a sugar cookie. I want to be known for the cookies like I think are a signature cookie.
Sure.
You know, so why don't we start out that way? Why start it out as like, these are the basic things we make and then slowly introduce people? I was like, let's just be us as soon as we start.
Yeah.
So those were always my favorite recipes too.
Right. So like Blanca's good at being a good buffer between like the things that I find to be like creatively draining.
Yep.
So it's great.
Oh man.
I do what I'm good at. Blanca does what she's good at.
And you got to stay in your lanes.
Yes.
Do your thing.
Yes. I wash dishes.
I think
that's all I do in the kitchen.
That's fine.
I don't.
And that's good too because.
And take video.
And take videos.
Yeah.
I think people need to listen to this because a lot of times when we start out, we want to be all things to all people and you can't be.
No.
And if you are more than one person working in a group on an effort, everybody needs to stay in their lane. Everybody needs to focus on what their strength is because that's how the group as a whole gets better. Right? You know, I mean, there's an expression, one can put 1,000 to flight, two people can put 10,000 to flight. So just exponentially, the two of you together are way more efficient than just either one of you on your own.
Right.
So, yeah. So there's some real benefits there. So when did you actually start Sugar Apple Baking Company? Do you remember the date?
Officially, I think it was like right after my birthday.
Okay.
Yeah. I had this like birthdays to me are always like mentally a big deal, you know, because it's like you close out one year and then the next year is coming.
Sure.
And so for me, I like to keep myself going, you know, so I'm like, okay, year 28, level 28 just closed out. What's 29 going to be like, you know? And so for me, it's always like, I have this reference. I had a lot of like loss in like family members as a child. So for me, like time is not this like infinite thing that I think I'm like guaranteed.
Right.
You know, like I don't know when it's going to happen, but it could happen any point. You know, I could be 102 or I could be 30.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's always like, I don't want to die with a regret. So it's always, I wanted to go to culinary school, you know, but my mom and my family, they're all bakers or like they run restaurants, they run hotels. But when you're a kid in that, they're kind of like, don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, we all do it. Go be a lawyer, go be a doctor, whatever, you know? But I keep coming back to it. So it got to a point where I was like, I keep coming back to this. I think it's like worth it to myself that I'm like, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah. You know, I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of times people, you know, will go out and do the things that other people dream about.
Yeah.
And not what they dream about. Right. And that's it. So it's like, you know, a lot of times your kids parents will live vicariously through the accomplishments of their children.
Right.
And it's not necessarily what their children want to do, but it's what the parents never had a chance to do. So now that child is fulfilling that, and that's a dangerous place to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
And you hear too many people talk about it. And I have friends that have, you know, gotten law degrees and then 15 years into their career were like, this was never what I wanted to do anyway. This was what my parents wanted me to do.
Right.
I wanted to go, I don't know, ride a bus or whatever. You know, it could be anything. And I think, you know, life is too short. As you said, we could go right the next day or we could go 50 or 60 or 70 years from now. And I think it's important for us to live every day to its fullest.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that's what you're doing. So I want to applaud you for that.
Thank you.
So absolutely. Absolutely. And so now you guys decided to come together. You said, you know what? Pandemic be damned. We are starting this business and we're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
When did you start to realize that your baking was at a level where people would actually come back and ask for more?
Oh, I realized that when it was unofficial out of the trunk of my car.
Okay.
Yeah, because it got to a point where I could not keep up with the production level for the number of DMs I was getting on Instagram.
Wow. And
that was like an eye-opening moment because I wasn't making 2 dozen cinnamon rolls. It was like 10 dozen cinnamon rolls.
Sure.
And when I started thinking like, okay, this is like 120.
Yeah.
Then I started thinking, I wonder how many cinnamon rolls Rick's Bakery sells. You know, I started thinking like that. Like how many, my local Walmart, how many cinnamon rolls do they sell per week? Sure. I started thinking like that way. Like, okay, these numbers are at a level where now I'm wondering, is it worth it to scale up or what should I do? And at the time, it wasn't worth it to scale up. So then I came back to it. But there's a lot of like good lessons I learned in that process. Yeah. So it was interesting. But when it hit like 10 dozen cinnamon rolls out of the trunk of my car,
that's when you knew.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, maybe a sign.
And repeat cars, because it was very much like a drive-by.
Sure.
People would just roll up. I'd be like, what's your name? Check. Here you go.
Yeah.
So when I started seeing the same cars, I was like, wait a minute. These are like the same people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting.
And the thing about it is nowadays with technology being what it is, you mentioned Venmo. I mean, people can easily send you money. Yeah. You've got Instagram, you've got other social media outlets where you can just let people know about what's going on. It's easy to interact with that and to kind of test the market.
It is.
And you had a chance to kind of test the market.
Yeah, that's right. You did test the market.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're out there. So, yeah. And you guys have been on other podcasts. I know you were on my friend Ro's podcast, Ro on the radio. And I mean, Ro is great. And what was that like for you, that experience?
It was affirming.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It was affirming.
Now, did you send her an email too, or did she reach out to you? Or
I'm pretty sure Blanca did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I sent her a DM and I was like, hey, can we go now? Can we go now? I'm always the one in the DMs and emailing and asking everyone and telling everyone, go follow our Instagram, Sugar Apple Baking Co.
Yeah.
The wildest part about this was like a month into business. So I'm like more reserved, right? Like I need there to be like, to me, I feel like we need to be at the place before I do something.
Yep.
And Blanca's like, we'll get there when we get there. How about we just do it now?
Right.
So I think I was like, are we ready for this? And she was like, why not? So Blanca goes, well, what do you need to be ready? And I was like, she's right.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, she's right. There's no reason. A year from now, the words I want to say about my business and my branding are not going to be any different than what they are right now. And I was like, okay, she's right.
Okay. I love
it. It is fun. It feels like I'm managing an artist. So that was like one of my dreams growing up.
Right.
A fantasy of mine. Like I wanted to work for Hot 97, be an intern. But my parents were like, no, you can't go into the city by yourself.
Yeah.
So I told Pedro, I was like, I feel like I circled back around to that fantasy of managing an artist.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I talk to her and I'm like, let her get it out.
So Danielle is like your Pebbles or something.
Yes. Oh no. I gotta find an artist for you. That makes sense. I was like, who's the ones that are always like, gotta get that, like curse everybody out and then come back.
I gotta get the jitters out.
Right.
Get the jitters. That's
funny.
What it is, jitters?
Yeah, that's hilarious. So tell me, so then obviously the inspiration for your baked goods, besides just the West Indies and just all the flavors and elements that you find in West Indian cooking, what are the other inspirations for you as far as that's concerned?
I would say it's like heavily influenced by like French pastries.
Okay.
So my Aunt Audrey, and in my kitchen, there's a picture of her. Like I look at her when I wash the dishes, Mm-hmm. And so she had a bachelor's degree in chemistry, but she ran this cafe in the Caribbean on an island called Bequia.
Yep.
That was maybe no bigger than this room, and she had like all these like really amazing French techniques that, considering the lack of like refrigeration and like the limit on ingredients, I think that she is maybe one of the most innovative bakers that I will ever come across.
Sure.
Simply because to be that innovative with a lack of ingredients and resource, to me, is like the height of creativity, because she just did what she could do.
Right.
So I grew up like, helping out on the weekends. And so I learned all these things when I was little. Yeah. How do you laminate pastry? Yeah. And it was early and it was just automatic, but that's like a heavy influence.
Yeah. And you think about it, it's like you could have gone in a whole different direction and you would have almost suppressed all those skills that you gained at an early age. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that you're able to kind of use them and utilize them and make them, elevate it to a new level.
Well, I think like for me, like I dream about making pastries.
Okay.
Like I'll make a cookie in my sleep before I make a cookie.
Right.
And it's also like I like my pastries to evoke like a memory.
Right.
So like we brought you this like dark and spicy cookie.
Yeah.
And to me,
cookie.
Thank you. Yes. And so for me, it's like I grew up drinking cocoa tea instead of hot chocolate, So cocoa tea is like raw cocoa, think like dark chocolate, heavy on spices. So like, and every family does it different. Mine did black pepper. I'm not a fan of the black pepper, but nutmeg, cardamom, ginger, whatever your family's like preference is. So like this cookie triggers like a memory in me of that cocoa tea, So I like to like, and even though I understand that they're not like shared memories with other people, but they're my memories.
Right.
And we have found that people take a bite and they're like, whoa, what's this? So they're like experiencing what I experienced as a kid for the first time. And it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. And then you also had the other cookie that you brought was a cornbread jalapeno cookie, which, you don't normally think of cornbread in a cookie,
right?
In that same mix, right? But it works.
Yeah.
I got to tell, I mean, folks, you're listening to this, you have to try this out. This cookie is amazing. Very tasty. It has cornbread elements to it, and the jalapeno has just the right amount of bite. But it's actually a sweet cookie.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, which is really, that's the thing that I really liked about it.
Yeah.
So.
I know. It's so fun. Like anytime that's why I enjoy working with her. Because anytime she makes something, I'm like, oh, this is new. This is so fun. We need to sell this.
Right. Yeah. Right. And then, of course, you had to bring me a pastry, and the cream cheese lemon puff pastry, and it's kind of a lemon tart. It was perfect. Folks, the lemon is the right amount of tartness, but not too tart, and the right amount of sweetness, but not too sweet, if there is such a thing. And it just really, really, it melts in your mouth. I mean, just very, very good pastry, a really good pastry. So,
thank you.
So how do you have a fixed rotation of things that you make now, or do you have regulars? Do you have things that you can always get at the baking company, or how does that work?
So right now, because we've been in business for about 4 months now, so we're kind of figuring out like what our signature items are. So lately we've just been we're testing out the waters basically. So I think our next pop-up will be peach upside down cake.
Okay.
Kind of like heavy on the cardamom, nice and spicy.
Okay.
But if people do bulk orders a lot of times, we can take any of our signature items.
Okay.
Yeah.
And all your signature items are on your website?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. That's cool. Yeah. So I want to make sure people know, and we'll point everyone to the website and their whole social media set up on our show notes, so that way you guys can reach out to Blanca and Danielle and order some pastries specifically. But I mean, this is exciting. And I guess it has to also be exciting for you that, there's so many commercial kitchens opening up in the area. I mean, it's just, that's like a big thing. And I was actually just talking to one of the ladies here at the library that works at the reference desk. Shout out to Kathy. But, the one thing that a lot of people don't realize that this library has, and we're in the Fayetteville Public Library, is they have a commercial kitchen. And it's beautiful.
Yes.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And people can use their library card to rent it out.
Yeah.
This library is gorgeous.
It is. That's a whole nother story. I fanboy over the library all the time, so it's totally fine. But but no, I mean, I just think that a lot of people don't realize that a lot of companies nowadays, especially in bigger cities like New York and others, they're like ghost kitchens all over the place where people will cook in those ghost kitchens. These are commercial kitchens that are approved, and then they'll sell their menus like maybe on the weekends through DoorDash or through Uber Eats and things of that nature. It's one way to, instead of you having to go out and buy a bricks and mortar space, you're able to kind of test the market, see what the response is, and course correct, and then decide if this is the direction that you want to go.
Yeah.
Do you guys kind of feel like you're in that space right now?
Yeah, we do pop-ups. We try to do pop-ups twice a month. And we take pre-orders online.
Okay.
So, and then at the pop-up, we just have a couple items until we're there until we sell out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been going well. We do pop-ups at Two Friends bookstore in Bentonville.
Okay.
They've been real helpful, giving us the space and the time.
Okay. Really and great. If there's anybody else that's listening to this that says, you know what, I want to give those guys space for pop-up, how what do you want them to do? How would they
give us space for pop-up?
Yeah.
They can reach out to me, email or DM.
Because sometimes just a collaboration of two different, divergent things can come together. I mean, books and cookies and pastries. Yes. I mean, that's a good combination.
Yeah, and they also have...
You add coffee to it.
I was going to say, they have coffee there, too. They sell coffee.
Okay.
So that's why it also made sense. But as far as collab, we kind of toyed with the idea because at the last pop-up, she incorporated Onyx coffee. So even collab like with ingredients would be really cool too. I mean, that would link it to like the pop-up if they have like a brick and mortar, have us there and we'll feature another way to use your
That would be nice.
In the recipe.
We'd like to work with as many like local food producers like us as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Might be good for you guys to some way figure out how you could coordinate with the folks from Ashami Tea.
I have an idea already.
Yeah, so because his tea is amazing, and he has, I mean, such good tea.
Yes,
and that tea really does go well with pastries. So,
we have some at our house too.
Yeah, so but yeah, I mean, there's just like a million different options. I mean, what's next for you guys?
August pop-up. Right now, like, I think what we're focusing on is, I think like Blanca and I've talked about having our cookies in more retail spaces.
Okay.
You know, like right now it's at Wild. They're a clothing store that just opened up in Bentonville. We have the honey jalapeno there at the front. So it's been interesting, but really I'd like to keep testing out. It's like I'm almost at a point where I want to see how far I can take something.
Right.
You know, like what is the limit? Because ideally, like my dream situation is we put up a pop-up menu and it's gone within 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like ideally, like that's where I want to be. I want eventually to just say, hey, we have a pop-up. I'm not telling you guys what the menu is. We start at 6.
Show up.
Yeah. Show up.
Yeah. I like that.
Like that's where I'd like to be.
Yeah.
You know, that's like complete autonomy, like my absolute authentic self.
Yeah.
This is what I made. Come enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, the thing about it is it's just like with anything, you know, there are groups of people that will follow you just for what you're doing. Right. I mean, there are groups of people that will go to a brewery when they do a new brew, bakery when they create a new item. It's like, so it's that whole concept. It's like, you don't have to be all things to all people, but there are a core group of people that will follow you and will be loyal to you, especially from that perspective, because they just love pastries and baked goods. I
also think that like social media has influenced the way that people interact with businesses.
Yeah.
So it is such like no one, if all you sell is brownies, right?
Yep.
No one, eventually you will begin losing followers because your social media feed is just brownies, right? Yeah. That's all you sell. So with us, I don't think that we get like the boredom factor because we rotate the menu so frequently that there is not time to get bored with our feed or bored with our menu.
And we're also not available all the time.
Right. There's also...
I don't have time for that.
Right. I don't have time. So there's also like that demand. Like if you miss this pop-up, I don't know when these honey jalapeno cookies will be back.
It'll be a minute.
It'll be a minute. Yeah. It'll be, you know.
And the way Danny's creativity works, like the last pop-up we had, I didn't know what our menu was till the day of.
Oh, wow.
People were asking me like, what's she going to serve? What's new? I was like, I have no idea. And then she sends me a picture of the lemon cream cheese puff pastry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're selling this? I'm so excited. I haven't even tasted it yet.
Yeah,
so
I went dark.
I just let her
quiet.
go.
I was quiet for like 8 hours. Nobody could reach me. I was like, listen, I'm doing something. Let me be. My shoulders on fire. We gotta laminate this pastry. I didn't answer my phone. Eventually I came out. I was like, here you go, Blanca. This is
I just left her alone. I was like, I'm gonna go do my own thing.
So if somebody like got a hold of like, specifically, I'm just thinking of like that lemon puff pastry and they said, you know what, I'm getting married and I want 200 of these for my wedding. Can you do that?
I think we could. I mean, I think we'd be renting this kitchen.
Yeah, I was going to say, I definitely...
in this library.
Okay, all right.
But we could do it.
My library
all right.
Yeah.
Because you just never know, right? Somebody might say they're so enamored by your creations that they're like, you know, in my heart of hearts and you know, nobody tells anybody getting married no on their wedding day, right? That's just how it is. It's like, well, how do we make this work? It's like, so I'm just curious. And that may be somebody listening might say, you know what? I love what she made with this. Can you do this for 200 people? So,
I mean, yesterday we handed out 75 cookies.
Oh, wow.
You know, so
where?
Wild.
Okay. At Wild. Okay. Cool.
So we can handle it.
Now you're going to have to come up with like a mountain bike cookie or something like that.
So I love to ride my bike. And I started dabbling into mountain bike.
Okay.
So Danny's like, how do we tap into like these mountain bikers? I know they love to eat. They have to be the way they're riding. I was like, I don't know. I'll go find some group and
have you heard of Arkansas Latinas in BC?
Yes.
So,
I have. Olivia and Sophia are
great.
Awesome.
Those guys are great. You should probably test it with them because I know they like some pastries and baked goods. So,
you need it.
Yeah. So, but no, that's so funny. I mean, there's just so many different groups here.
Yeah.
So.
Especially we sell a salted caramel Rice Krispie.
Right.
And I'm like, I use it as a pre-workout sometimes.
Yeah.
Before I go for a long ride, I'm like, some quick sugar.
Some quick sugar. Yep. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. So, well, I mean, the sky is the limit for both of you guys. And I got to say, it's been a pleasure to kind of sit down and just talk with you and learn a little bit more about your journey, where you're going, and the fact that the destination's still up in the air, right? I mean, you know, this could go a lot of different ways for you guys, all of them successful, right? And I don't think anybody's going to judge you one way or the other, but I think that your story is indicative of the creativity that comes about, especially when, you know, we were kind of sequestered away in our homes, in our closets and, you know, behind closed doors of Zoom and everything else. And now people are starting to come out and you know, the pandemic is still around and fully aware of that. But the reality is that sometimes necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah. And you guys had a necessity to get these creative juices out of you and share it with the world. And I mean, we all are the beneficiary of that with what you're creating here with the Sugar Apple Baking Company. So I want to wish you nothing but success as you guys move forward. And do you have any last second thought that you'd like to share with our audience before we close?
Follow us on Instagram, Sugar Apple Baking Co. Email us for those bulk orders.
Right.
If you want to buy wholesale, hit us up.
Yeah.
Sell it.
Anything from you, Chef?
No.
Okay, good. I think you've said it all.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I really appreciate it. Blanca Maldonado, Danielle Reynolds, thank you guys so much for joining me on the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. I really appreciate it. We're rooting for you guys. And we're not only your fans, but we're going to be customers as well, especially after this box that you gave me.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I'm not sharing this with any of my listeners. So you guys are going to have to get your own. You're going to have to reach out to these guys, Sugar Apple Baking Co. online. And I'll make sure that on the show notes, you see everything that you need to see in terms of how to get in contact with them. And if you do reach out to Blanca and Danielle, please mention that you heard about them first right here on the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Well, folks, there you have it. Another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Remember, our episode comes out every Monday, rain or shine. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'll see you back here next week. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.